49% of healthcare serial killers are women. And even though male nurses make up half of the nurse serial killers, there's only 13% male in the nursing workforce. So it's the numbers are, that's the thing about statistics. They can be very confusing. They can be manipulated. But nurses and males and females in the nursing field comprise 86% of the healthcare serial killers. So that's a huge number. 86% in the medical field are male and female nurses. The number of suspicious deaths attributed to the confirmed killers in a study that was done was over 2,000. That's a huge number. Research shows that an estimated 35 people are killed in healthcare across the U.S. 35 a year doesn't seem like a lot, but one is too much. One is too much. If you average that out, that is that's almost 3 per month in a 12-month time span, right? It's just hard to believe. You think, in the scheme of things, 35 is not that bad. But if your family member was one of those 35, you would think that was really bad. So it's perspective, really. It's perspective. Most people don't pay a lot of attention to the statistics on serial killers, the statistics on violent offenders, until they have a personal reason to do so. Some of us are interested in it for other reasons. And I know that they say there's a lot of people in this world who really love watching these serial killer shows and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe it's because they're warped. I don't think it's because they have an interest in learning how to do it, although I'm sure there are people who do. I think it's because it's so out of the ordinary and so over the top of what we have experienced in life that it's interesting. And of course I feel that way. I feel like it's very interesting, and I want to be one of those people who try to help prevent these things in the future. So there's a lot of information that you got to comb. There's so much information that you got to comb through and think about, and no one's ever going to be 100% right. There's always going to be anomalies, simply because every human being is different. So you can have a generalized statement, but does it apply to everyone equally? No, it doesn't. And that's frustrating for a lot of people, but you have to understand how statistics work. And you have to understand that when we make these generalized comments or thoughts or decisions about people as a group, it doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. But that's how the checklists are made. This is, checklists are the most common thread among the majority of whatever that body is you're looking at. If it happens to be serial killers, then what are the characteristics that each serial killer displayed? And then what's the commonalities among all of the serial killers? And then you take those top numbers and there's your checklist. That's how that works. But there has to be reliable information collected. Here's the thing about the healthcare field and these nurses. You've got consultants who are looking at this information on a regular basis. And if you don't trust what they say, remember, there were consultants in the Lucy Letby case who said, we're seeing a trend here. Something's not right. We need to really look at this. And they were basically told to shut it down, that they were wrong. They were, they had to apologize. You had doctors who had to apologize to nurses who were guilty. So not only is that going to cost someone in the future, a doctor or another person or a consultant, to say, they're not going to do a thing about it, so why should I even bring it up? And more people die. We have to stop being comfortable or being able to say, oh, somebody else will take care of it. I'm not getting involved. It's not easy. It's not easy. And it's not something that most people want to jump into. Certainly, if I would hesitate if I thought there was a serial killer out there and I decided I was going to try to find out more information about it, or I wanted to get involved in some way, I would hesitate because I don't want to become a target, right? Or I don't want my family to become a target. But I also know that we have to have advocates and we have to have people who are making a difference for these victims because they can't help themselves now, right? So some of us have to be able to do that. Some of us have to step outside of our comfort zone and say, listen, this isn't right. We need to do this, 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 and this, or I don't know what we need to do, but let's work together and try to figure it out. So we don't have these medical serial killers. So we don't have these, just general serial killers out in the world, or educators who don't care, who are narcissistic, who bully students, who bully other people. That's a huge issue. Bullying, as you know, if you've listened to these podcasts any length of time, bullying is, I'm going to say top three. It may be number one. Bullying, though, is top three reasons why people turn into violent offenders. They're bullied throughout school. They're bullied by adults. They're bullied by peers. And no one stops it. And it's hard. I literally have been in classrooms where people are bullied. And it's difficult to be brave and step forward and do anything about it. It's very difficult. So I'm certainly not saying that I was successful at changing those things. I can say, as I'm older now and I've got a lot more experience than I used to have. And I certainly don't think that I'm too worried about the consequences if I believe that the decisions that I make are in the best interest of the student, then I do it. And that's what I tell my students as well. Every decision you make in your classroom, if you constantly think, is this what is best for these students? Is this the best way I should teach this, learning standard? Is this the best way I should utilize, positive behavior management? Are these the best decisions? And here's why. Here's some data that I have that back up why I believe this is why I should do it this way. No one can argue with you about it. Well, someone will always argue with you about it, but they'll be wrong. If you have data to back those decisions up, if you have that common goal of doing always what is best for the student, rarely will administration or your peers or parents or guardians go against you. Because you're not doing it to be mean. You're not doing these things to be mean or to prove a point or to make you look good. You're doing it because you know that's what's best for that student. No different than healthcare, people. It's no different. If, as a nurse or a doctor or a consultant, even a patient's family, if what you are questioning is for the betterment of that person that you are protecting or supposed to be protecting, then a lot of people won't respect that, but they should. They should respect that. We don't want to be called on the carpet. We don't want to be put in the middle of something that we could bow out of. But in order to save people, in order to make a difference in this world, we have to step out and do that. And that, man, you could talk about that for days and days and days, about things that we need to do as a society, about things that we need to learn to do as an individual to make a difference in this world. It usually takes something very personal to happen to someone before they become a very diligent advocate. and I hope these things never happen to you, but if you look at some of the journal articles, the books that have been written, especially ones about books about murder in the healthcare field, serial killing in the healthcare field, they are authored by family members of victims. And they usually will team up with a psychologist, a criminologist, other professionals in that particular field, so that what they're trying to communicate to the world with this book, with this information, is here's what we learned from this. This, if we had done this, and this, perhaps we could have avoided this death. But they're giving you advice. They're giving us a way to do things to make this world a better place. So, I hope that we can inspire each other to do good things without having to suffer, and that becoming our main motivation. I've certainly I've never, to my knowledge, ever had anything close to dealing personally with anybody that has been a victim of serial killing. I don't know that I've ever dealt with anyone in the healthcare field, any family member or close friend or relative who have been killed in a nursing home or neglected or in a hospital or whatever. I don't think I have. But I would hope that if I did, I would do something about it. I know I was a huge advocate for my father when he was in ICU. He wasn't mistreated at all. He wasn't mistreated, but we could not get the doctors to admit that he had had a stroke or perhaps multiple strokes, because it would have, what I was told was it would have made their operation, he was having open heart surgery, it would have made his operation be deemed unsuccessful. And no doctor wants that. They want their statistics, their personal statistics, to be an overwhelming number of successes. And so, I can tell you, no, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I can tell you I'm fairly intelligent. I've done my due diligence. My husband is in the medical field. We have family members in the medical field. And I could tell you, just from when my dad had lucid days, he was never right after that surgery. And he did die like 6 times on the table during the surgery. So I do believe he had some brain damage. I believe he had a stroke. But he never really recovered enough. He ended up going to rehab for 5 days, but he shouldn't have been there. He had no business being there, but they couldn't do anything else for him. Of course, all of this is hindsight, right? I'm looking at this from a point of view, he passed away 5 days into being in a rehabilitation center. But would it have changed anything had I come forward and really made a big fuss about him possibly having a stroke? I'll never know that. I will never know that because I didn't. I did confront several of the doctors that were on his case. I was able to eventually get copies of his medical records and look at all those things, but I do know that if medical professionals want to hide something or cover something up, they know how to word things in medical records to do that. And I believe that's what happened with Dad. Again, looking back, I can tell you I wish they'd just let him die on the table and not revived him all those times, because all it did was lengthen his suffering on this earth. He could have been gone, and we would, my mother would have had to go through all the things that she went through. So I think there has to come a time when someone in that field, whether it be an educator, whether it be a medical professional, says this is what's in the best interest of this patient, and it's not something that family members want to hear, but it's what's best for that family. and that person, really. It's best for that person. Dad would have not spent 3 months in ICU